So to the audience, we are going to have a very interesting session today. We are going to talk about what you can do and how you can prepare for your postmaster's career journey in the US. So we're going to speak with John Cardillo very shortly. We are also going to speak with Liana, who's the Director of Graduate Enrollment at NYU's Tandon School of Engineering. So we are going to speak to them very shortly. But before I do that, and before I invite John to take us through his presentation, I'm going to quickly run our first two polls for the evening. So you'll be able to see the poll one on your screen right about now. So the first poll is around, are you considering applying to a graduate engineering program in the US? So if you're able to see this poll on your screen, please do respond with a yes or a no. So let us know if you're looking to apply to a graduate engineering program in the US this year or early next year. So a quick yes or no would be great. The second poll question, which you can also see on the screen simultaneously, is around which is your top priority when you're evaluating university options? Is program curriculum the main criteria that drives your decision? Is it the career support, the internship opportunities, the career services that are offered by the school that drives your decision? Or is it the research opportunities that drive your decision, location, cost of attendance, or something else? So these are the two polls which we're running today evening. So if you're able to see those polls on your screen right now, please do respond. Let us know firstly that if you're looking to apply to graduate engineering programs in the US soon, so maybe this year or next year. And secondly, if you are applying, then what is your top priority? Which is the factor which which drives your decision? Is it the curriculum, the career support, the research opportunities, the location, the cost of attendance, or something else? I'm going to keep this poll live for another 10 seconds. So if you haven't responded, please do respond. It lets us know where you're coming from and what are your aspirations, what are the factors that drive your decision. Great. So I have around 80 people who have responded to this poll, so that's really great. I'm going to keep this open for another few seconds. So if you haven't responded, please do respond to the poll. Let us know firstly if you're looking to apply to graduate engineering programs. And if you are, then what is the factor that drives your decision? Great. So with that, I'm going to end this poll and I'm going to share the results on the screen right away. So around 65% of our audience is looking to apply to a graduate engineering program in the US shortly, so maybe this year or next year. And the primary factor that drives their decision or the top priority when they're evaluating university options is internship opportunities and the career support that they get from the school. So very apt response and something very particular to today's session. In today's session, we are going to talk about career opportunities. We are going to speak to John Cardillo, who's the assistant director with the Career Hub at NYU Tandon. So we are going to speak to him to understand how does NYU Tandon's Career Hub support its students in finding the right opportunity for themselves. Without further ado, without wasting any further time, I'm going to hand this over to John to take us through his presentation, tell us about navigating the job search process in the US and how NYU Tandon helps its students. Post that, we'll also speak with Liana. So we'll ask questions to Liana, who's the Director of Admissions, Director of Graduate Enrollment at NYU, to understand the admission criteria and what NYU looks for in prospective students who want to study over there. So with that, over to you, John.
Thank you so much, Sanjay, and good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for allowing me to speak to you today. Just to introduce myself further, again, my name is John Cardillo. I am Assistant Director of the Tandon Career Hub, which is one of the career services arms here at NYU Tandon. So my main role is to help NYU Tandon students, both undergrad and graduate students, with career development, helping them find jobs and internships. We do that through a whole variety of ways. I'll walk through our services a little bit later, but at least for today, what our focus is on is, really just some overall introduction to some ideas and some things that you can do to be successful in navigating the job search process, especially here in the US, if you're thinking of coming over here for your graduate program. So what we'll do is we'll talk about some very, high level things about job and internship search strategy, including searching for positions, keeping track of your search, some sample job targets within STEM fields. We'll go over a very quick resume example. A lot of students do ask me about this question, but what I want to emphasize is that the work that I do can go even beyond that with the coaching that we do. And aside from helping people with their resumes, we also talk about job search strategy, networking, things like that. When it comes to networking, I'll give you some tools you can already start maybe using, even in your own professional development, including how to create an elevator pitch, looking at networking strategy and informational interviews, some high-level ideas about how to create your LinkedIn profile. We'll go over some very quick interview tips. What I do have with this presentation is some links to some resources that we usually share with NYU Tandon students, but they're available on our website. So I will send this presentation to Sanjay to send to everyone who is participating in this call for some further research on your own end. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll open it up to questions and answers. So just in the chat box, just to make this a bit more interactive, what I'd love to see from everyone is, if you're going to be going through a graduate program, where do you see yourself in 5 years? People can put some responses into the chat box. That would make this, I want to make this as interactive as possible. So I'd love to know what ideas you might have. Yeah, working as a data scientist, fantastic. If you're planning on, specific kind of career goals, if you're not sure, if you might be pursuing PhD programs past your graduate degree, any of those answers might be great. Getting master's degree, working for a couple of years in the US, then going back home, working in cybersecurity, working as a data analyst, not sure, senior position within IT, pursuing a PhD. Wonderful. Like doing UX and UI design, product marketing manager at a renowned Hollywood production house. That would be so cool. Data engineering, financial analysis, CEO of a company. I like that. Perfect, everyone. No, the reason why I asked that question is setting clear-cut goals for yourself in terms of what career field you might be interested in, the kinds of roles you might want, even if you're not sure, at least starting to think about where your aspirational goals might be can help you start creating a process to get there. And that's really the crux of the work that I do, is helping students navigate that process. So one of the first things that we think about once we're engaged in a job or internship search process is starting to target specific organizations. I think that doing that on top of applying for specific positions is going to be very helpful for us. One tool that I always, one tool that I always tell my students to create is something that we call a target company list, searching for organizations in different industries you're interested in by, best of lists, or looking at companies on job boards that you might not be familiar with, thinking about recommendations from friends or family. If you have previous working experience before and you have certain vendors or clients from those previous companies, those can all be places to help you start creating a foundation of different companies you might want to look at for positions. On top of that, a resource that I share with NYU Tandon students is a list of placement outcomes. We have a list of companies, it's not every company, but places where NYU Tandon students have gone on to get positions after they've graduated. So that's really a good resource to help serve as a foundation for the kinds of companies you might want to target. And as students are applying for internships, I think that, and also applying for positions, I say that looking at repeatable process, thinking about your job search week to week can help you make it more repeatable, can help you stay in that job search frame of mind. So I would always say, depending on the kinds of positions you're targeting, you might want to target something like 15 or 20 applications per week. On top of that, a job search, again, it's one of those processes that you always want to be top of mind. It's not something that you do a little bit here, a little bit there, but if you do it consistently, that we can see the snowball effect, and you can kind of see the results coming back from it. I also suggest keeping track of your search and watching your journey unfold. So what I mean by this is having some kind of spreadsheet where you're keeping track of the companies you're applying to, the positions. If you link back to the actual position itself, because sometimes there might be a little bit of a delay between when you apply for a position and when a company calls you back. Some other pertinent information about that position when you're getting interviewed, if you've gotten a reject or if you're moving forward in that process. Anything you can do just to keep track of where you are and how you're progressing can kind of keep you honest and keep you focused on where you need to do in your search. On top of that, NYU does have some more specific job boards that we share with students, which if you were to enroll here, I'll be happy to share those resources with you. But for now, these are some of the more general job boards that I usually recommend for students who are looking for opportunities in STEM fields. On top of that, NYU Tandon has a whole broad spectrum of different majors, including computer science, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, chemical and biomolecular engineering. We have, the CUS program, which is for applied urban science and informatics. There's a whole variety of different types of majors that students go to the school for. And based on that, this is kind of a snapshot of like different types of positions that NYU students and students in STEM fields in general go after. When you're thinking about those particular types of positions, one of the main tools and one of the main things that students come to talk to me about would be your resume. This is kind of going to be your main marketing tool to introduce yourself to companies to help you get consideration for positions you apply for. Just some very quick tips about your resume. Number one, we want to make it clear and easy to read, and make sure that you have clear heading and clear contact information. For students, I think that your education should go first and should highlight achievement, including your GPA, previous academic honors, and relevant coursework, things that pertain to skills and abilities. When you're describing experience, you always want to use, the most recent positions and most recent experience first. Everything goes in reverse chronological order. And, what happens here is like we want each line to demonstrate a value proposition. I've sometimes seen students, whether they're highlighting work or projects, talk more about the functionality of the things they built as opposed to the technical tools they've used, the purposes behind what they were building, and any results about how they've made things work. The biggest thing here when you're describing experience, that's what companies are looking for. How have you used certain tools and skills that will be required for the positions you apply to that are relevant for the jobs that you're interested in? So if you can highlight those particular things, describe impact and achievement, that'll really go a long way towards showing your value for the positions you apply for. And additionally, we can include other relevant information, including skills, if you're part of any clubs or organizations, if you have any professional associations you're a part of, personal interests. Those are all things that can also be used and included on your resume. My typical thought is that a resume should be 1 page. That usually applies for people who have even up to a couple of years of working experience, or if you have a blend of working experience and academic projects or personal projects and other experiences. That way, the people who are reading your resume can see very concisely what you've studied, what you've done, and how your experience pertains to those kinds of positions. So once we have those in mind, like once we have some clear-cut goals about where we're going, once we start putting that on paper and actually approaching those types of positions, that's not the only thing we want to do to get interviews. If we're going to be talking about ourselves, I think that we want to have a high degree of self-awareness. So another question that I have for the audience, and you can put this in the chat box, is what do you consider to be your greatest strength? This can be either technical skills, soft skills, anything might be relevant. So if anyone wants to share, that would be wonderful. Communication, great. Problem solving. Software and teaching, awesome. Negotiation, management, punctuality. Relationship skills, nice, and bold too. So I think there's a high degree of confidence there. The reason why I asked that question is to get you thinking about how to communicate about yourself, not only on paper, but also on building relationships with professionals in industry during your time here as a student. One tool that can really help make it easier to communicate who you are and your value to a potential organization, whether it be in a networking or interviewing scenario, is a tool that we call an elevator pitch. This is usually an introduction of yourself, and it's about 30 seconds in length. And what it does is it concisely highlights your strengths and skills that are relevant to the employers you talk to. Some of the main questions that you're answering during this particular elevator pitch might be, who are you? For most of the students here, if you were to enroll in NYU, one of the first things you could say is, I'm currently a master's student at NYU Tandon, let's say studying mechanical engineering. What is it that you do? You could talk about this very generally. You could say something like, I have previous working experience, doing mechanical design and, project management work in this type of field. And now I'm studying mechanical engineering to learn more about this area of that particular field. And when you talk about what about you is unique and valuable, that's why I asked you about your strengths. Because one thing that I want everyone to understand is companies will not just be evaluating you on your technical skills, they'll also be evaluating you on personality and different things about your professional nature, including how you communicate, how you work in teams, how you solve problems. So you could even use descriptions of these types of skills in your elevator pitch to give people an idea of how you want them to think about you. Again, the elevator pitch is a commercial that can address frequently asked questions in networking and interviewing scenarios like, tell me about yourself, or why did you choose this particular field? And when you're having these conversations, whether they're going to be over Zoom or in person, there's going to be more opportunity for in person now, thankfully. You want to maintain clear eye contact and be clear about your intentions. Why are you talking to that person? Even at the end of the conversation, if it's networking, you could say, I'm really curious to learn more about your organization, opportunities that might be available. Or in an interview, you could even say, now that you know more about me, I'm really curious to learn about the position and how my skills and profile might match up to it. Networking is going to be, this is going to be a very important tool when it comes to networking. The idea that I want everyone to understand, just so that you can get more comfortable with it, especially if you don't have any exposure to networking before, it's all about cultivating relationships and exchanging career information and advice. It's one of those processes that's going to take time, intent, and effort. Time in the sense where we want to put in the time to make sure it happens. Intent, that we want to be very clear about who we're talking to and what we're asking of them. And effort in the sense where even if we don't get a lot of results immediately, we still keep going consistently and not get discouraged by that. It's not an exchange of job opportunities. It could lead to that, but it's more about learning from people about their careers and making connections that can help you down the line. The NYU network is approximately 60,000 current students and 600,000 alumni globally. But even thinking beyond that, everyone in this virtual room, including myself, is now part of your network. Relatives and friends are, classmates, faculty, staff members at your school, alumni of whichever school you're going to, current and former colleagues and work supervisors, members of different social, religious, and cultural associations you're a part of, members of professional associations and clubs you've been a part of too. As you're looking to grow your network organically, especially during your time here as an NYU student, I would highly recommend joining clubs and organizations and activities here at NYU, joining other regional, national, and global professional associations. For example, for mechanical engineers, there's like the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. There's the, there's like the Society of Women Engineers. There's all kinds of different organizations based on different professional backgrounds and identities that you can be a part of. On top of that, there are events that Career Services hosts with different, and Career Hub and Wasserman hosts with different employers. There's other events that are happening within the school and outside of it where you can network with different people. And there's also virtual tools like, for example, the Violet Network. There's a link to it, but only NYU students have access to it. It's kind of like an NYU LinkedIn between alumni and current students from various backgrounds to give them a platform to connect with each other on top of traditional LinkedIn. Again, when you're thinking about networking more intently, you want to create a target list of people, especially ones who are working at companies you're interested in, and seek them out to build connections. Again, start early. From the first time you get here, start thinking about events you want to attend, trying to reach out to people to do that, or conduct one informational interview a week. Show up and speak out to the events you attend, like ask questions, introduce yourself. And when you're talking to people, make sure that you're doing your homework, asking them informed questions about who they are, what they do. And the whole idea behind any of these conversations you're having is you're not asking for a job or internship immediately. And again, taking notes on some of the conversations you actually have, just so that you can be very specific with follow-ups that you do, showing gratitude, thanking them for their time, staying in touch and just keeping in touch with them over time, and just being patient that it might take a little bit of time for people to respond to you, and not taking things personally if they don't go that particular way. There's always someone else to talk to. One of the main ways to really conduct some kind of networking conversations, if you actually get to a point where you reach out to someone and you say, hey, I'm really interested in your company and your work. Would you have time for a 20-minute Zoom call? Just so I can ask you a few more questions about that. What you're asking those people for is what we call an informational interview. It's an informal conversation to get information about that person's field, their role in the organization they work at, especially if it's one that interests you. Some of the questions you could ask could be like, how did you get into this field? Can you tell me more about your role and what do you do day to day? Are there some challenges in your industry or company that you're currently targeting? Different things like that. You know, what advice would you have for me as I'm pursuing a career in this field? It's good to get advice from that particular person about how to succeed in that field and how to grow. At the same time, you know, once you have that conversation, make sure you send them a thank you email within 24 hours and personalize it. Mention something specific from that conversation and document it. Keep track of that instance. Because what you might be able to do is when you follow up with them, you could say, oh, maybe I can ping this person about a position before I apply to it at that company. Or maybe I could say like, hey, my club is going to be, if you're part of like a club like this, my club is going to be doing this kind of engagement. Could you serve as a speaker? Like there's so many different ways that building these connections can be helpful for you, both in your job search and in your professional endeavors. And make sure that you keep doing this and keep growing that list, because this could be a great way to build contacts in your network that you can keep in touch with. The easiest thing is that maybe like once you connect with these people, they can be referrals for future internship and job applications, or help you in a whole variety of ways. But this is a way to grow your network organically for multiple types of things that might be useful for you. Just some quick crash course stuff on LinkedIn. Make sure you keep your profile up to date as you go through new certifications, new roles, new education. Make sure that you're adding those things. Use LinkedIn to proactively identify potential employers and contacts, and use the platform to communicate with people and personalize it. This is a sample message you could say to somebody that you're looking to have an informational interview with. So even beyond that, if we've established good connections, like if we know the companies we want to apply to, if we have a strong resume down, if we are making connections with people and helping us get to the interview stage, one thing I want you to think about too is what's something you're proud of? It can be a personal or professional thing, but what's something that you're proud of right now at this particular point in your own personal and professional development? Technical skills, people skills. I'm going to send the whole presentation to everyone, so don't worry about that. Research skills. I mean, these are all things you can be proud of. Like, again, the things you're confident in, the experiences you've had before, these can all be talking points you use to help you with an interview. This is just a very quick overview of some behavioral interview stuff, but when you're going into an interview, you want to make sure that you are researching the company, so you know more about who they are and what they do. Some sources for that can be the website, their social media profiles, Google News alerts, tapping into industry connections to ask them questions about that company and their work. Make sure you review that company's job description. You want to think about examples of experience you have to match your skills to the stated needs of the position. One thing that I really love about interviewing and structuring your answers, especially when you're giving examples of your experience, whether it be answering behavioral or technical questions, is something called the STAR method. And again, there's some links here that will help you understand that better. But that usually stands for situation, task, action, and result. That's a structure for giving examples of your experience as they relate to different questions you get in the interview. STAR, the situation is what was the problem you faced in the example you're giving. The task is going to be you describing what your plan of attack was to solve that problem. The actions are going to be what specific steps you took, including describing technical tools and techniques that you used to answer those particular questions and to solve those problems. And the result will be what happened, what was the outcome of all that work, and what did you learn from the experience. We have on our website a prep sheet to help you organize your thoughts and strategy for different interviews. We also have like some common interview questions you can go after. All these different things will help you when it comes to looking more into interviewing. This is kind of like a quick overview of some of the higher level topics that we as a service here at the Tannen Career Hub provide for NYU Tannen students. We provide career coaching on resumes and cover letters, interview prep, how to look for positions, how to network We have drop-in hours for students. We do workshops with employers and they teach you about different job searching techniques. We have career fairs and employer info sessions to help you connect with different employers. We have data science and lead code boot camps to help with technical interview practice. The platform that we use for job opportunities is Tandem Connect, which is available for current students. And I also invite everyone on this call to view our employment outcomes from previous years to get a small idea of where NYU Tandem students have gone on to work and the kinds of positions they've gotten. So putting all this together, if you're going to be in the US job market, understanding where you want to go, what you want to say about yourself, both on paper, digitally, and in person, being proactive with making connections with different companies on top of the applications you put out, and preparing for how you specifically can be a good fit for those positions and interviews, put that all together, and that's going to be how you crack the US job market and crack your post-graduation job opportunities and even for internships. We can help you very specifically during your time as a student with that on an individual basis, on top of taking advantage of all the group events that we do. But I hope that this has been illuminating for everyone. It's taught you a little bit more about what this process looks like. And at this time, if you have specific questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you, John. This was extremely insightful. I learned quite a few things from this as well. And
wonderful.
Specific tips about how to keep your LinkedIn updated, how to get your skills updated over there all the time, how to send out communication. So I'm quite confident that our audience has found this useful as well. I would encourage the audience to ask questions in the Q&A window so that we can pick those up and ask the relevant questions to John. But before we do that, I quickly want to run you through what we are doing next Saturday or next week as well. So just give me a second. I'm going to display a screen for you for a second. So today's session, we are talking to John about the career support, the career services, the career center at NYU Tandon. Next week, we are talking to Liana. Next Tuesday, we are talking to Liana and Ryan from the NYU Tandon's admissions team, the enrollment marketing and recruitment team, to understand what you can do to ace the NYU Tandon application process. So if you are looking to applying to an MS program in the US and specifically targeting NYU Tandon, or even if you're targeting some other engineering schools but want to hear from Liana and get those expert tips from her on how you can make a wonderful application, then this session is happening on the coming Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. IST, 2 p.m. GMT. If you want to attend that session, the link to register for that is on the screen. You can scan this QR code and register as well. I'm going to display this for 10 seconds. So if you are looking to attend this session, you can register for it right now. You can also keep posting your questions in the Q&A window so that we can pick those up for John. But in the meanwhile, if you want to finish your registration, you can scan this QR code and register as well. This is one. Second thing is, if you're applying to MS programs in the US and are looking for scholarship, then at Seed, which is the company I represent, so I'm a chief operating officer at Seed Global Education. We have endowed a scholarship fund as well. This could be a couple of $1,000 if you attend a session like this with us and apply to that school and make it to the program, then you can also get a scholarship from our end. If you're looking to apply for the scholarship, it's a very short interest form. It's the preliminary interest form. So if you want to fill that up, you can scan this QR code and express your interest in getting the scholarship as well. The round one application deadline for the scholarship is 1st December. And as I said, if you apply for the scholarship and you make it to NYU Tandon, then you may end up getting a couple of $1,000 of scholarship from our endowment fund as well. So hope this helps. I am going to stop sharing the screen now. This is going to be, if you will get this over WhatsApp, you'll get this information or email as well. So if you have not captured it right now, it's all right. Don't worry about it. You would have access to this later as well. Let me stop the share now and go to our questions. Before I do that, I would also invite, I see 11 questions which have already come in. So there's a lot of interest and a lot of queries coming in. But let me invite Liana as well to this session. So Liana, as I was showing on the screen, is the Director of Graduate Enrollment at NYU Tandon. We are going to interact with her next Tuesday to get expert tips on how to make a great application to NYU Tandon. But I'm sure you have some questions about getting an admission to NYU, and I would bring in Liana to answer those questions as well. With that, let me start taking the questions now. Let me take the first question, or the most upvoted question. This is from Rahat Jabin, who has asked this question, is about getting a fully funded master's program or professional opportunities for international students. So I think, Liana, this question is completely up your alley. what can the students do to reduce their financial cost of studying in the US? So I understand getting a full scholarship, a full ride is super difficult, but what opportunities are available to the students so that they can make their program more affordable and reduce the cost?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, hello, everybody. As you said, it's very, very rare in the US to get a fully funded master's degree. That's not really something that is common or happens very often. However, many graduate schools, including NYU, will offer merit-based or need-based scholarships. Usually there is not a separate application required for these. And once you are admitted to the program, you will be reviewed for whatever aid you're eligible for at the different program. At NYU, we only do merit scholarships. So once you're admitted, your application will be routed to the scholarship committee, and you will be reviewed for a partial scholarship based on your grades and your test scores. In addition to that, NYU, along with many other universities in the US, will offer on-campus jobs for students. We get a lot of questions about funding through teaching assistantship or graduate assistantship or research assistantship. These types of positions are often offered ahead of time to PhD students to help work with the faculty advisors and the research labs they will be staffing. These positions are available on occasion for master's students, but not ahead of time. So for example, if you did really well in a class, you really hit it off with the professor and they're looking for a teaching assistant as a master's student, you may be able to apply for and be hired for that job. In addition, there are many, many other jobs on campus. We hire about 40 students in our own office to help process applications and answer your questions. And NYU has a very good rate for their students. A very good rate of pay for their student workers. So this is another way that people help cover their living expenses. There's also outside scholarships you can search for, such as the one that Sanjay mentioned through SEED. There's other organizations you can connect with, including Education USA, that may have a list of scholarships you're eligible for coming as a student from India.
All right, great. So thanks, Liana. Thanks for the insights on that. So to the audience, just to summarize, you can possibly target a merit scholarship, so make a great application for that. Possibly also apply early because scholarship kitties are always limited, so make your application as early as possible. When the kitties more, the chances improve as well. Then there may be opportunities to work part-time, get a graduate research assistantship, or apply for external scholarships as the one which I showed, which is available from SEED. So I think Yusuf, this answers your question as well. Your question was also about scholarships for those with a baccalaureate degree. So I think both of these questions got answered simultaneously. So thanks for that, Liana. The next most upvoted question that I have is from Prachi, and she's looking to get into an Ivy League college for MSc in STEM program. Does she need to have an extraordinary resume for it? I'm guessing, Liana, this is again for you. The question is, when someone is looking to study at a tier 1 engineering school in the US, how do they make a great resume, or what do you look for in prospective candidates?
Well, this is something we'll be covering next week in our session in much more depth. My main advice for you is that in any admissions process, there are going to be some students that are automatically admitted because of their qualifications, and there's some that are going to be automatically denied because of their qualifications. And one thing, when they're looking at that group of students who all may have similar high qualifications, they are going to be looking at who's going to be a good fit for their program. And again, I'll go into much more depth about this next week, but there's not one answer to this question. Basically, what you'll need to do is figure out, once you do the research for your program, you're going to have to figure out, how is this a good fit for me? And if it's a good fit, then putting together a good application should not be that difficult, because you'll be able to tell your story. You'll be able to show what you've done. If you've done research, if you have taken courses, if you've done internships, those kinds of things, and how they led you to applying for this program. a lot of students are applying to multiple universities, multiple programs, and as hard as it is important to personalize those applications, because there are going to be a lot of candidates that may have a similar profile to you, and you need to really tell the story about what you're going to add to the program and how that program is going to help you achieve your goals.
Great. Thanks, Liana. Thanks for that. To those of you who are looking to attend Liana's session next Tuesday on acing the NYU application process, I have posted the link in the chat window. So you can just copy it, post it in any of the Chrome browser, and it would take you to the registration page as well. So you can register for that session as well. Great. Let me take up the next question. So John, this is coming towards your way. This is from Harshita. She's recently completed her master's in biotechnology. And her question is around what career opportunities does the US offer to students like her who are already graduate in master's degree? So I'm understanding, or Harshita, if I'm correct, I believe you haven't studied in the US. Your master's is not from the US. You have possibly studied in India. And John, this is a more generic question. So if someone is an outsider, what can they do to crack an opportunity in the US? Or would you recommend that they come in and study one more time in the US and then look for opportunities? What's the better pathway?
I've seen students before who had degrees from outside of the US pursue master's degrees and other advanced degrees within NYU itself. And the process for looking for positions is very similar. A lot of those type things I outlined before, kind of determining like the kinds of fields you might want to go into, starting to research different types of positions and the relevant skills that are needed for those types of roles, starting to make connections in those fields, applying for jobs and internships, even looking at on-campus research opportunities if there's anything that NYU is doing that's in that particular field that can help you gain more experience. Anytime that you can start learning more about the different skills that are necessary for those types of roles, making connections in those fields, that helps you build a profile, that helps you grow as a professional in that particular field, and gets you opportunity to continue to grow and to advance your career that way.
All right. So basically doing one more master's may not be a bad idea. It gives you the network in the market, the connections, the right credentials to crack an opportunity in that particular geography, that particular country.
I always think that any time that anyone's looking to pursue additional education is a matter of personal choice. I think that any previous experience, whether it be professional in industry or academic and researching, can always help as a foundation for what you might learn and what additional things you're doing. And no matter whether it's here at NYU or any other universities, there's going to be support mechanisms in place to help those particular students grow individually.
All right, great. Thanks, John. That's extremely useful. John, the next question I'm going to take up, this is from Tanvi. She's asking about the opportunities that someone pursuing a MEM, so Masters in Engineering Management degree, can look for. Yep.
I know that there are a lot of students here who have individual backgrounds, and you're looking to see what's going to be the opportunities for me based on my background. There really aren't going to be a lot of 30-second answers that I can give for someone, whether you're looking for civil engineering or technology management or consulting or financial engineering. At least the main service that we provide, like on an individual basis, like with the career coaching that we do for current students, that requires time, requires getting to know each student individually, kind of seeing where your strengths are, what you're going after, who you can talk to. So that's one of the main services that we provide, one of the main levels of support that NYU and other schools can provide for you. So, I wish there was more like a quick answer I could give for that, but it's something that takes a little bit of time and effort, but that's available here. And we look forward to helping you more with that over time, should you make the decision to come to NYU.
Great. That's fair. I think quick answers, your profile specific quick answers are really not what is possible in this forum. But yeah, as John has covered the resources, the support that the school provides to its students, and possibly that should be your direction or some, that should be the path that you should consider as well. John, this is a question which has come in from Preeti. She is asking about, so firstly, she's thanking you for this informative session. Our question is, what is the right time to start looking for career opportunities? So let's say someone comes into the NYU Tandem's MS program. When do they start looking for opportunity? And can you also give some overview on the OPT and CPT opportunities that are available to an international student?
Okay. First off, for full disclosure, CPT and OPT, NYU has what we call the Office of Global Services that can provide more additional information about the entire process for pursuing those types of opportunities. Generally, based on my understanding, CPT is the work authorization that a student can use after 1 year of their study here at NYU or other schools to pursue an off-campus internship. OPT is usually used for full-time positions, and in a STEM field, you have up to 3 years working in the US for any organization that would not require visa sponsorship at that particular time. But again, it's one of those things that the Office of Global Services is a resource that's available for students to take advantage of once you're actually here. So I would definitely direct any questions or any queries you might have about that to look at that ahead of time before you join NYU or any other school. On top of that, what was the other part of that question, Sanjay?
So our question is, when is the right time to start looking for career opportunities?
So let's say, for example, a lot of students who would be coming like from based on the backgrounds that you all have, you most likely be pursuing on-campus positions from the time you start as an NYU Tandem student, because you can do that right from the beginning. For internships, you're usually going to be targeting the summer after your first year of your master's program. Most companies actually start their recruiting processes in August or September of any given academic year. So even if you have a previous background, but you're still, I know it's kind of a weird timing because you're just starting your new master's program, you would hope to use some of the things you learn in that program as part of your profile for applying for internships and things like that. I would say start looking at opportunities as soon as you get into your program. So that way you're not missing out on some of the bigger companies. But just so that you know, even if it starts in that previous fall, opportunities come up throughout the entirety of any academic year, even into the spring. There are even some companies that don't do their hiring for summer until like Jan of that particular calendar year. What I would say is, the sooner you can start looking at opportunities, the sooner you can start applying for them, making connections, the better, no matter what background or what profile you have with relation to the field you're going after. It always makes sense to get that started. And again, that's something we can help you with from the time you start as a student at NYU.
Thanks, John. That's really helpful. The next question I have, this is from Imad Abasi. He's asking that someone coming from a non-IT or CS degree apply for Liana, I think this question would be more relevant to you. This is from Imad, who's asking if someone from a non-IT or a non-CS degree can apply for the MS in cybersecurity program.
Yeah, well, you do have to have some background in computer science to apply for this program if you want to be successful at the master's level. We have actually created what's called the Bridge to Tandem program. This is for students who come from any different background except for computer science. Basically, this is an online program. You can choose to do 17 or 24 weeks, depending on what works best with your schedule. And in that process, you will learn the necessary foundation courses that you would need to be successful. It's a very intensive program, and a lot of other universities have a similar thing because there are so many students in this situation. The other thing I'd like to say is that it really does depend on your background too. The computer science department is looking for very specific course requirements. So some people may have these course requirements in another major, and those are all listed online, but they're courses such as data structures, computer architecture, multivariable calculus, these types of things. So if you think that you may qualify based on whatever you studied, if you studied a physics or electrical engineering or something like that, you can always go onto the website and see if you check off those requirements. However, if you do not, you will not be admitted to the program until you have those requirements fulfilled.
Thanks, Liana. Thanks for that clarification. Uh, John, this is a question which has come up a couple of times now. There is word or there's whatever perception that there's a looming recession on the cards. The last 2 years have seen breakneck growth and opportunities in the economy, and last few months have been a little challenging for the economy for the companies across the board. So this question has been asked by Laksh. There's Abdul who's also asked a similar question. They're really concerned about the job market by the time they graduate. So let's say someone comes into the program next year in 2023, graduates in 2025 or earlier. Uh, what does the school do to support them in their career path? And if you've seen examples from the past recessions, maybe 2009 or something around that time, what kind of challenges did the students face, and then what happened over there? Any insights, any guidance over there?
I personally okay. Just as a disclaimer, I can't speak, unfortunately, to the broader economic, market at this particular time. I'm not an economist, nor do I work for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. What I do is I try to help students, no matter what the environment is, on an individual basis. I personally graduated from undergrad during the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, and had a difficult time finding a position, but by chance, that actually led me to the path where I'm on now, and having done this work for the past 12 years. On top of that, one example that I can give is during COVID, when, all of a sudden the nature of work shifted from in-person to virtual mainly. A lot of companies had to cancel internship opportunities, and students, a lot of other organizations sprang up with some virtual things, and there were chances to volunteer. Again, I think the best way I can answer that question generally is the services that I've outlined that we provide will be available for students no matter what the outlying circumstances of the job market are. That's what our mandate is within NYU, is to help students the best way possible. I don't have a crystal ball and can't predict those particular things, but I would say that during your time as a student, take advantage of every resource. If there's things that start early, make as many connections as you possibly can, apply to as many opportunities as you possibly can. You are going to be the biggest determining factor no matter what. And by you, I mean each individual student will be the biggest determining factor of your own career success. So the earlier you make a plan, the earlier you start the work that you need to do for finding a position. It's not meant to add additional stress on top of, starting a new program and anything like that. But if we can go through that process and you have the help and support and take advantage of those resources, then you'll be setting yourself up for success no matter what the circumstances out there in the job market might be.
Thanks, John. I think the message over here is that if you go to a great school, the school stands by you, right? The school, the team, the administration does the best they can for you, irrespective of the job market.
Right. I mean, a lot of times, another thing too is students ask me larger questions like, based on my background, what are my chances of getting a position? One thing I want everyone to understand is that searching for a job, it's more of an art than a science. I never have been able to find a statistical method to say if you apply for X number of positions, have X number of interviews, it will lead to X number of job offers. If I had that, I could market it and I wouldn't be working in the job that I do. I could sell that and make a lot of money. But long story short, again, navigating through a qualitative process, especially for engineers, I know can be difficult. I know it can be a process we're not used to, that is new for you. And that's why we have these services in place to help you as best as possible navigate that and achieve the success you're looking for. So that's what we are hoping to do with you during your time here at NYU.
Great. Thanks for the insights, John. And I hope Laksh, Abdul, both of you who had asked this question, and the others who are concerned about this particular area, I think this gives you some reassurance, some understanding as well. Okay, so I think I'm seeing a lot of profile-specific questions about specific programs that you want to pursue. So I'm going to skip those for now. But I'm going to take up a question for John, which is around how to leverage job fairs. So actually, I'm going to combine two questions. So both are by Akash, who is asking how to approach job fairs or what to do in a job fair and how to make
Yeah.
the most of those opportunities? And does a GPA matter in getting a job? So at the time of graduation, does their master's GPA play a role?
Okay. Let me answer the second question first, GPA. Some positions do have GPA requirements. So of course I will always say, yes, apply yourself academically, try to get the highest GPA you possibly can. At the same time, I know that there's multiple determining factors in job success: experience, personality, connection to the actual position. There's a lot of determining factors, but trying to balance all those things out as best as possible always is one of the best recipes for success. Leading to career fairs, right? Job fairs are a great opportunity to make introductions and connections with different companies. We want to try to avoid just being, the thing to understand about them is that those are opportunities for companies to speak to a lot of different students. And what we want to try to avoid is just being one of those people where they just say, oh, apply on the website. I think that preparation is one of the biggest factors to helping you be successful in a job fair, whether it be virtual or in person. Number one, research the companies that you're going to be attending that will have opportunities available for you. Research their internships, research what the requirements for those positions might be. So that way, you're qualified for those positions. You start thinking about, different examples of experience you have that might be useful for it. And you can almost treat the job fair like a first interview. You can introduce yourself using your elevator pitch. You can tell them that, hey, I'm actually interested in this network administration internship. And I've actually had previous experience like that before. What I'd like to know is you can ask them specific questions like, what are the biggest projects that someone in this position might work on? What are the profiles you look for here? How have you seen people be successful with these opportunities? Have an actual detailed conversation. Even if the person says, oh, just apply on the website, you can still push and say, well, I will definitely do that. But I wanted to know a little bit more about this because this will help you stand out. Asking those specific questions will help you stand out from everyone else who might just be like, okay, if the company's kind of tries to keep the conversation brief. And then there's always power in the follow-up. Make sure you get the contact information of every person you speak to at a particular job fair. Make sure that if you're going to follow up with them, let them know that you've applied for that particular position, thank them for their time and the specific things you talk to them about. And from there, that can help you get more consideration for the things you apply for and the companies you're going after and help you move forward and maybe get some opportunity coming from those events.
Great. Thanks, John. That's extremely insightful. We have the last 5 minutes, so I want to take up some important questions. And Liana, there are some questions around your changing streams and people coming from so for example, there's this question from Danish, who is a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, now works as a data engineer and is looking to change his background or change his path and get into a master's in business analytics. Is that a possibility? The mechanical engineer working as a data engineer wants to pursue a master's in business analytics.
Well, I'm just going to answer this generally. Again, same thing that John said. We don't really go into very specific individual questions like this in big sessions. We're happy to help you if you want to email the office and ask for advising. What I would say is what I said earlier, that along with computer science, each of the programs, if they have course prerequisites required to apply for their program, they will list those on the website. So for example, if you wanted to go into business analytics, which is a program at the business school, not at the engineering school, you would have to go to their website and see what it is they require. And if you meet those requirements, then go ahead and apply. If not, I personally did not meet the requirements of the master's degree I wanted to attend. And so I took a year off to take those courses and to be able to qualify. And so if you know what you want to do, just because you don't immediately meet the qualifications doesn't mean you should give up on that program. But these answers are readily available on the website. So you are able to search for that and see if you would be a good candidate.
Sure, that makes sense. Liana, a following question for you. This is from Belaiba, who's dialing in from Algeria, who wants to pursue a PhD. And how easy is it for someone to get into the PhD program at NYU? how does one transfer from Algeria to USA for pursuing a PhD?
Again, this is a very individual
That's right.
question. There's
Yep.
not just one PhD program at NYU. We have quite a few different PhD programs at NYU, and each one has different requirements. We have a very large number of international students at NYU from many different countries. And so that element of the question should not be a barrier. We work with the Credential Evaluation Service to look through and interpret your transcripts if they are not familiar to our faculty. But the process should be similar for you as it would to a US student or a student from India. Our PhD programs vary in selectivity. Some of them have more spots available than others. And so it really depends on what you're interested in based on how you should prepare for that and how hard it is to get in. This is also something we'll cover in general PhD applications in our session next week.
Perfect. So those of you who are looking for tips on how to make a great application, what are the evaluation parameters? What does NYU look for? As I said, we are hosting a session with Liana on next Tuesday. The registration link is in the chat window. So it's my last post to everyone in the chat window. So you can use that link to register and attend the session on coming Tuesday. Okay. So I see a lot of profile specific questions. So I'm going to skip most of those for now. John, one question which Poonam has asked, if there are any websites or any platforms that the students can use to further prepare themselves for cracking an opportunity in the US. So any platforms which can guide on resume building, anything that they can use to prep for STEM job interviews. Yep.
Yeah, I have some different things, mainly on like job interviews and other resources that we have. There's check out the Tannen Career Hub website. There's different advice on like resumes. There's some examples there on interviewing, networking, things like that. So I also have some of those resources in our presentation that I just shared. So I'll share that with you, Sanjay. If you want to share that with the group, that would be great.
Sure, that would be great. So we'll share that link with you, but you can also go search in the Tannen Career Hub website and you'll find the information over there as well. And we'll send across the link as well. All right, great. Just give me 1 second. I do have a number of questions which are still coming in. So Shreya, to your question, as Liana has mentioned, this is a very profile specific question. So Liana, Shreya is currently, she had applied to Tannen earlier, didn't get through, and she's now pursuing a program at University of Maryland, wants to transfer to NYU for spring. But Shreya, what I would suggest is reach out, attend the session on next Tuesday, or reach out to Liana directly through their website contact information, and then get guidance accordingly. I think it's a very profile specific question, so I'm going to let it go for now.
Well, I just want to say one thing about that. We do have a lot of people who think that who ask about transferring into a master's program and that may be like a backdoor way to get into the program. Unfortunately, it is not. You still have to apply. You have to go through the same exact application process you went through before. And then after you're admitted, they will evaluate your coursework to see if it will transfer. A master's program is very short. It's 2 years only. And so faculty are very protective about the curriculum in their courses. And some of them will take courses from other programs and some of them will not.
Okay. Liana, the next follow-on. So I'm just going to take the last 1 or 2 questions. I know we are over time, but just one question. This is from Faryal, who is considering taking a break before applying for a master's program. And his question is, does taking a break impact his admission prospects at NYU?
Absolutely not. Students come from right out of school to working for 10 years to 1 or 2 years. It doesn't have any difference. The only difference it would be is if it really clarifies what you want to do, and that's a positive thing.
Great. And okay, so one question, this is from Balapriya. Are students allowed to work part-time outside of campus? So I understand, Liana, that is possible. There is certain limitation on the number of hours that they can work outside of campus, but if you can give some more insights over here.
Yeah, again, this is something that you will need to talk to the Office of Global Services about when you're applying for your visa. But the general rule is that for the first year of your program, you are only allowed to work on campus for up to 20 hours a week if you are studying on a student visa. After that 1 year, you can apply for a CPT, which John briefly mentioned. This is an opportunity to be able to work off campus in a course of in a job that's related to your field. So there's no opportunity for you to, for example, work at a restaurant or a retail store or something like that in New York City. That is not allowed on a student visa, but we have a multitude of on-campus jobs for our international students. And then if you want to do an internship or you get an opportunity to work in a job related to your field that you're studying, then you can apply for CPT after your first year.
All right, great. On that note, I would like to wrap up this session. The rest of the questions I have with you from the audience are more profile specific. So Liana, if they want to get in touch with you, your team, get clarity on some of the pending questions, is there an email address where they can reach you?
Yes, you can reach us at gradinfo@nyu.edu.
Great. So I'm just going to type it out in the chat window. So those of you who are questions are still unanswered, I may not have been able to take your, sorry, go ahead, Liana.
I was just going to say it's engineering.gradinfo, my bad.
Okay.
Engineering.gradinfo@nyu.edu.
Okay. So I'm just going to correct that. I'm going to put in the correct email address in the chat window now. So those of you whose questions have not been able to take up today, our apologies, it's a short session and a lot of the questions are profile specific. So if you have your profile specific questions, you are particularly considering some programs at NYU Standen School of Engineering, then write to engineering.gradinfo@nyu.edu and you can get clarification to your query over there. With that, I want to thank John and Liana for doing this session. This has been extremely insightful. I could see in the comments in the Q&A also a lot of people thanking you for doing this session. So thank you again for doing this session. This has been extremely insightful. I hope our audience, or I'm confident that the audience found it extremely useful as well. And thank you to the audience for being so patient and sticking with us through the session. Thank you, John. Thank you, Liana, for doing this session.
No problem at all. Great to talk to everyone and look forward to hopefully seeing you in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see some of you next week at our session as well.
Thank you, Liana. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.